Hello, trainers! Professor Palm here. And how has your week been? Has it been good? Has it been bad? Has it been unproductive? For me, I've had a bit of a hard week. But I've had such a hard week, I can't control my rage anymore. I'm going freaking mad, I tell you! Mad! Yeah! Whew. Whew. I apologize, trainers. I kind of went a little insane there for a second, but I gotta say, at least I didn't go all the way over the top. If I went all the way over the top, I think I would have had the destructive power of some Pokemon. Have you ever thought of going on a rampage with how angry you can get? Well, any rampage can never be as powerful as some Pokemon. There are some Pokemon whose rampage is so deadly that it has the ability to change the landscape all around it. Even maps have to be redrawn, and this rage will never subside unless its enemies are defeated or it lies defeated. I have to say, Arceus has made a lot of interesting creatures over the years, but it is kind of sad to see this Pokemon looks down on humans. But if this Pokemon looks down on humans and says that they're all destructive creatures, then how can he ignore the fact that he created Kaiju Pokemon that bring nothing but destruction? Yep, you know exactly who we're talking about. If you want to see what pure rampage, pure rage, and pure aggression looks like in Pokemon form, as well as a little Godzilla thrown into the mix, then look no further than Larvitar, Pupitar, and of course, Tyranitar. These Pokemon are based off Kaijus, and I gotta say, they are some of the coolest Kaijus of all time. I have to say, for a Pokemon line based off of Kaijus, they really add up. These Pokemon bring with them nothing but destruction. Nothing stands in their way. Anything that blocks their path, boom! Smithereens. Not even the heaviest Pokemon alive can stand up to them. Oh, and did I mention, all three of these Pokemon have bodies as hard as steel? Yep, you could say that they're bulletproof and indestructible. With the chaos they bring, it is so terrifying. But, at the same time, it is quite impressive to see how powerful these Pokemon are. And there's something marvelous about chaos at times. Have you ever been curious of Kaijus? Well, today's the day we get to learn all about how a Kaiju was born, how it grows, and where it ends up. Isn't that a lot of fun? Well, come on, trainers! Let's get this show on the road. But before we begin, I want to give a very special thanks to my buddy Dan of Mystery Draw for the request of this video. This video is dedicated to you, my friend. If you're curious to know about Mystery Draw, it is a channel where he opens packs of cards and usually gets incredible pulls. I have to say, I really like checking out this guy, and I hope that you do too. If you're a person who likes Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon cards, or even Magic the Gathering, whatever your card game is, check him out. He is incredible. And of course, I want to give a huge thanks to artist Techrenova for my shirt. If you like these shirts that I wear with these designs, I have to say, I love them just as much as you. I may not be sponsored by her, but I still want to give her a big thanks and say you should definitely get these shirts. With the design she makes, I'm pretty sure that she has one with your name on it, with your favorite Pokemon, or maybe even favorite starter Pokemon. Since we're talking about the Tyranitar line today, I think that the Tyrant Within shirt is a perfect shirt to wear. For those of you who really love this line, I would personally recommend that you buy this shirt. Why buy silly stock image t-shirts when you can give someone like Techrenova good business? Let's go mad with power! Let's express some rage! But let's do it in small amounts first. Let's start with something very cute that has very small amount of rampage, but still has quite a bit. And we're going to start off with Larvitar. Larvitar, the rock-skin Pokemon, is based on a Kaiju hatchling, or it could also be based on a dinosaur hatchling, mainly a T-Rex hatchling. But to me, these cute little guys will always remind me of the Bubble Bobble creature, Bub. For those of you who don't know, Bub was the green little creature from the game of Bubble Bobble who would help you try to get your puzzle solved. When a Larvitar egg is laid, it's buried deep underground by its parents as they toughen their child up from the moment of birth. Wow, no wonder these Pokemon have such an aggressive nature. When Larvitar hatches from its egg, it eats its way through the dirt to the surface where its parents are. But because it's born underground where it's all dark, Larvitar doesn't deal well with bright lights the second it's out of the ground. These Pokemon enjoy eating a lot of rich soil, but despite their small size, Larvitar can consume an entire mountain! Of course, Larvitar doesn't realize it's eaten a whole mountain and only thinks it's eaten a little, and then it immediately goes to sleep. After all, it's a baby and it eats and goes to sleep. I gotta say, any anime protagonist who eats a big pile of food has nothing on this cute little kaiju. For crying out loud, it ate a mountain! Has anyone ever told you eat dirt? Well, Larvitar takes that quite seriously as this Pokemon loves eating rich soil. But the reason it really enjoys eating the soil is because this Pokemon has rock skin, and the more it eats, the harder its rock skin becomes, till it becomes as hard as iron. That's right, this Pokemon might just be a baby, but it has iron-like skin. This sure is one tough baby. I mean, first it's pushed all the way underground and has to learn how to dig its way out, and now it has iron-like skin. Wow, I gotta say, Tyranitar really is a pretty good parent. For the habitat of a Larvitar, they really like to live in dark caves. The reason why is they don't really deal well with bright light. After all, these Pokemon were born in the dark and had to find their way out. They also love to eat mountains, but they also like to live on them. Basically, Larvitar like to live in high uninhabited places as they like peace and quiet. Larvitar made its anime debut in the Pokemon Master Quest episode, Hatch Me If You Can, where Larvitar was hatched from an egg Ash was given by Professor Elm. But since this wasn't officially Ash's Pokemon, he never really caught it, and it's not 100% clear of what happened to it afterwards, but it is kind of sad that Ash passed on having one of the coolest Pseudo-Legendary Pokemon on his team. In the first Johto games that Larvitar was introduced into, you could only find this Pokemon in Mount Silver, and finding it was also really tough as it was a 5% encounter rate. So yeah, if you managed to find one of them back in the day, that was a very lucky capture. Even though they're not real Core Series games, Larvitar is the signature Pokemon of Go Rock Quad admin Billy, who debuted in the Pokemon Ranger series. This Pokemon was always by his side whenever he would play his electric guitar, and let me tell ya, they rock! When Larvitar eats enough, it not only grows, but it starts to become a pupa. Its rock-like skin becomes as hard as a shell and a cocoon. So, it's time we evolve our little kaiju into Pupitar. And trust me, unlike other cocoon Pokemon, Pupitar is a cocoon of doom! Pupitar, the hard-shell Pokemon, is based on a pupa, or metamorphosis, kind of like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly or a moth, but the middle stage. Speaking of which, it's also based off of a cocoon carried by the kaiju monster Mothra. But in some movies, some kaiju also go into a cocoon stage before becoming the monster we all know. Despite being a hard-shell cocoon, Pupitar can't sit still for even a minute, as these Pokemon want to fight and they don't like waiting. Since their rock-like shell, they don't have mouths anymore, as Pupitar don't really want to eat as they already got their fill when they were a Larvitar. After all, they eat mountains. Pupitar's shell is as hard as bedrock, and it's so durable, even this Pokemon launching itself into solid steel won't hurt or injure it. Oh, and if you tried using a machete to cut this Pokemon in half, it would be the blade of the machete that gets cut in half. Yep, you heard me right. This Pokemon can launch itself just like a rocket. If that sounds cool, it's kind of a gross process, and a very odd one at best. You see, what Pupitar does is it creates gas inside of its body that it compresses, and then it forcefully ejects itself and propels itself like a jet or a missile. So yeah, what you have to understand is it launches itself by farting. Stop laughing, it's not funny! The shell may be heavy, but Pupitar is surprisingly limber. Calling Pupitar a cocoon of doom is as true as it comes, because this Pokemon's thrashing capabilities has the power to level a mountain, and its hard shell has the power to send any trainer a one-way ticket to the hospital. If this Pokemon flies at you, your bones won't break. Nope, they'll shatter. Even though sealed in a shell, Pupitar can move freely, and what many people don't know is that it already has arms and legs inside its solid shell. Pupitar are also very excited about evolution that they can't wait. Oh, and that aggressive nature starts in this stage. Despite Pupitar's arms and legs being within it and being a hard shell cocoon, this Pokemon is actually known for going on a rampage. By that, it launches itself into trees, rocks, Pokemon, you name it. It launches itself because this Pokemon likes to show that it's the dominant one in this area and no one can cross it. Pupitar made its anime debut in the Pokemon Mystery Quest episode, The Mystery in History, where it was under the ownership of Ash's rival, Richie, who liked to nickname his Pokemon, and he named his Pupitar Cruz. In the very first Johto games, Pupitar can be found on Mount Silver, but this Pokemon is extremely rare. It has only a 5% chance of encounter. So yeah, if you want to get one, you have to be very patient. But trust me, being patient is totally worth it. It's sad to say, for being a rock and ground type, no rock type gym leader nor ground type gym leader have ever used these Pokemon on their team. And they're good. But if you want to talk about who it's a signature Pokemon of, again, in the Pokemon Ranger series, Go Rock Quad admin Billy uses this Pokemon to help him rock out on stage. Crazy to think that this Pokemon is so active despite being in a shell. Really does give you some shell shock. Say, you want to see a Pokemon that can really raise some shell? Well, let's watch a Rampage in action and evolve our little Pupitar into the Kaiju itself, Tyranitar, and this Pokemon leaves destruction wherever it goes. Tyranitar, the armor Pokemon, is based on a fusion of both a Tyrannosaurus Rex and a Kaiju, but it's the true Pokemon equivalent of Godzilla with its power of destruction. Tyranitar was the very first non-dragon pseudo-legendary Pokemon to ever be introduced, and it has one of the most unique designs ever. I really see why you like this Pokemon so much, Mystery Draw. It has such incredible power. Oh, and you should know that this Pokemon has strength unmatched, that whenever Tyranitar takes a step, the earth all around it shakes, and with one of its mighty hands, this Pokemon has the power to decimate an entire mountain with just one fatal swipe. Tyranitar is a Pokemon that has a very short fuse and a very aggressive nature, so it's best to try to make this Pokemon happy and at least avoid it, because when Tyranitar goes on a rampage, it knocks down mountains, buries rivers, burns forests, levels cities, and let's just say that's just the start. You don't want to know what else it'll do in its rampage. With that power that Tyranitar can unleash, that aggressive nature, that short fuse, and leaving destruction everywhere it goes, it really makes me wonder one question. Arceus, what were you thinking when you created that mad tyrant of a Pokemon? Tyranitar's power is so strong that this Pokemon has the power to change landforms in just a second. Many times maps have been redrawn because of the destruction that this Pokemon brings. Other than having a short fuse and an aggressive nature, Tyranitar has a very insolent nature, and it doesn't really care about others, and sometimes it won't even obey its trainer's commands and even turns on them. Because Tyranitar doesn't care about anything except itself, this Pokemon likes to wander around the mountains seeking new opponents to fight, and because its body is as hard as steel, legends say that Tyranitar can't be harmed by any sort of attack, as its scales are bulletproof, making it a pretty strong opponent and a Pokemon to really watch out for. Believe it or not, Tyranitar's habitat is in caves, or high on the mountains, despite it destroying both caves and mountains. It really likes to be alone, and being that it's a dark type, it likes to be left in the dark, undisturbed. Despite Tyranitar being a terrifying Pokemon with an insolent nature, it does have a soft spot, as it cares deeply for the Larvitar that it raises. These Pokemon try to keep their Larvitar out of harm's way, and even though they have to bury them deep underground, you know that the mothers as well as the fathers are trying to do the best they can for their children because they want them to be strong. Tyranitar made its debut in the Pokemon movie Celebi Voice of the Forest, where it was caught in a dark ball and used by the Iron Masked Marauder in his quest to capture Celebi. In the main anime series, Tyranitar made its debut in the episode Address Unknown, where a mother Tyranitar was reunited with her baby Larvitar thanks to Ash and his friends. In the games, sadly despite this Pokemon's incredible reputation, Tyranitar has never been the signature Pokemon of any gym leader or even Elite Four member in their very first battle. Since Dark-type gym leaders did not exist until Generation 8 with Piers in the Galar region, this Pokemon really would have worked well as a Dark-type gym leader's signature Pokemon, but it's sad to see that it never happened. The only time it was somewhat of a signature Pokemon of a gym leader was in Rourke in Platinum post-game. In the Pokemon Ranger games, Tyranitar is the signature Pokemon of Go Rock Quad admin Billy, who gives a pretty earth-shaking performance with this Pokemon. Oh, and to this day, no other Pokemon has the same typing combo as Tyranitar, being a Rock and Dark type, making this Pokemon the only of its kind. While this line is one of the coolest pseudo-legendary lines of all time, raising it is kind of a nightmare. Other than the fact that Pupitar and Larvitar don't evolve until levels 30 and 55, they have a terrible typing combo, being Ground and Rock, which has a lot of weaknesses. Let's count off all the weaknesses. They're weak to Fighting, Ground, Ice, and Steel. However, all these other ones that we just listed off are only a ×2 weakness. Being that they're a Ground and Rock type Pokemon, they have a ×4 weakness to other Pokemon. For the ×4 weaknesses of both Pupitar and Larvitar, it's none other than Grass and Water. Wow, that is a lot of weaknesses with a total of 6. Who knows? Maybe this Pokemon being a dual type has a lot of strengths. Let's talk about strengths of these Pokemon. Thankfully, Ground and Rock have a lot of strengths, so let's list them off. These Pokemon are very strong against Rock, Flying, Fire, Steel, Bug, Ice, and Electric. However, Electric isn't just a strength. Because both Pupitar and Larvitar are Ground type, they are immune to electric attacks, so an electric attack will do 0 damage to these guys. When Pupitar evolves into Tyranitar, it changes its typing from Rock Ground to Rock Dark. Being that now this Pokemon is a Rock Dark, it actually gains a lot more weaknesses. It actually has a lot. So let's talk about every one of its weaknesses. Tyranitar is weak to Ground, Bug, Water, Grass, Fairy, and Steel. However, all of these I just listed are ×2 weakness. This Pokemon has a ×4 weakness. Being that Tyranitar is a Rock and Dark type Pokemon, its major weakness is Fighting, which does a ×4 damage to it. Wow, this Pokemon has a lot of weaknesses. Maybe it can make up for it in strengths. Rock and Dark seem to have a lot of weaknesses, but let's look at its strengths. It seems to be very strong against Fire, Bug, Ice, Flying, Ghost, and of course, Psychic. But being that Tyranitar is a Rock Dark type, Psychic moves are not effective on it. That's right, Psychic Pokemon. Just like MC Hammer, you can't touch this. If you're a fan of Godzilla, or you really just love Kaijus, then this is the perfect line for you. It's really crazy how this Pokemon goes from being a very tiny little Kaiju from a little innocent Larvitar to an insolent creature that destroys without an ounce of remorse in Tyranitar. It's also pretty cool that we finally get to see how Kaiju are born and what they grow into. If you ask me, I truly think that this Pokemon has earned its power since it evolves at level 55 for evolution, and evolving it isn't that easy because Rock and Ground have a lot of weaknesses, but once you evolve and get this Tyranitar, you feel like you're on top of the world because this is a Pokemon no one will mess with, and with that incredible power, everything will be destroyed in its path. Did you know that despite these Pokemon being introduced in the Johto region, they live in a place that links both the Johto and the Kanto region together? Yep, that's exactly where Mount Silver is. Also, these Pokemon like to live in very harsh environments, like where it's really cold or very dark. So yeah, you could probably even find these Pokemon on high mountains, maybe even closer to the top of Mount Coronet. Mystery Draw, my friend, I can see exactly why you love this line. It is one of the coolest pseudo-legendary lines of all time. I have to say, even though it was only the second region, it was such a breath of fresh air to finally get ourselves something that was not Dragon for a pseudo-legendary. Don't get me wrong, Dragon is a great typing, but these guys are based off of dinosaurs and kaiju. Like, how can you go wrong there for making this pseudo? This is a perfect pseudo-legendary line. I hope that in the future we get more that are not Dragon. Kaijus are some of the coolest creatures of all time, and I gotta say, after seeing so many movies, it's great to have these guys in the game. But, most of all, what makes them so cool is they're the real idea of what Rampage would be if it was just a Pokemon. Hey, if they ever make a Pokemon Rampage movie, I think they have the perfect star. We don't need a gorilla, we have the Tyranitar line. Wow, Tyranitar, you really have such incredible power. I can't believe how much you have. But I have to say, there's still more. If you ever watch any kaiju movies, mainly the Godzilla film series, you'll know for a fact that Godzilla powers up like crazy. And guess what? In Generation 6, we saw what Tyranitar looks like at its full power. So yes, I think it's time we take our little Tyranitar and we Mega Evolve with Mega Tyranitar. Wow, this really is what a Kaiju in Super Saiyan God mode would look like. I guess we could call it Beast Mode. Wow, Tyranitar has gone through so much in Mega Evolution. Just to look at this incredible Pokemon. This is what you would see if you saw a Kaiju go God mode. I mean, wow, just look at this incredible beast. Mega Tyranitar is 100% based on Godzilla, but mainly when Godzilla goes beast mode. Yep, this Pokemon grows even more ferocious than ever, and it destroys without any mercy or any second thought. Nothing stands in its path. Anything that does is blown to smithereens. To this day, it's completely unclear whether or not Mega Tyranitar is listening to its trainer's orders or not, but when you look down at this Pokemon's body, you'll see how strong it is. It's as strong as Vibranium and Adamantium combined together. This Pokemon takes no injury from any attack thrown at it. Its body has no scratches. That's right, this Pokemon is bulletproof. While Mega Evolution is a very cool phenomenon, Tyranitar is one of those Pokemon that's really hurt. When this Pokemon Mega Evolves, because of its colossal power, its back splits right open, causing this Pokemon a lot of pain. But what really keeps it moving, surprisingly, is its destructive instincts. The tail of Mega Tyranitar is like a mace. Anything it touches will be shattered to smithereens. This tail also can help it start earthquakes. There have been many times where Tyranitar's tail slams into the ground and earthquakes start. Mega Tyranitar in a battle is like digging your own grave. Oh, and I don't mean that just to be silly. I mean this Pokemon can take a single step, open the ground, and it will swallow you whole. Yeah, this Pokemon can create trap holes in just a single footstep. Imagine how this Pokemon will go when it's on a rampage. Mega Tyranitar, to this day, has the highest base stat of both Rock and Dark Pokemon. Yep, it's the top predator for those Pokemon. And I gotta say, it definitely earned it. This Pokemon with Mega Power goes on a rampage and it can never be stopped unless you defeat it. Quite a terrifying creature, but if you really love Godzilla movies, or you're just a huge fan of kaiju movies, and you really like seeing a path of destruction, then this is the perfect Mega Evolution for you. Yeah! I think with all these Pokemon here, I finally expressed all my rage. Whew! I gotta say, this is such a cool line, but I'm curious to hear from you, trainers. I would love to know, was this a line that you went for back in the days, as well as the remakes, or did you mainly go for a pass on it? In other games, did you also try to raise it when you could? Oh, and in the future, do you think we should have another pseudo-legendary that is not dragon, or do you think that in the Paldea region we should get a pseudo-legendary dragon Pokemon? I'm curious to know. Also, do you think it's a good combo, a dark and rock? Do you also think that ground and rock is also a good combo? Or with all those weaknesses, are you mainly repulsed by it? I really would love to hear from you guys. If you liked what you saw, please leave a like. If you have an idea that you want to be turned into a video, you want me to talk about another Pokemon line, or you want me to talk a little bit more about Scarlet and Violet and the Paldea region, please comment. And as always, if you like what you saw and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. And please, don't be afraid to recommend me to as many trainers in the world. I love talking to all trainers out there. Mystery Draw, my friend, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was dedicated to you, my buddy. Thanks for watching. Palm out!